The Big Show is live and streaming at sportsnet.ca/960. Sportsnet 960, The Fan, Calgary.
Kerfoot brings it back in. A centering pass goes wide. Carey Price, who came as advertised. Can he steal a series? Could he steal a game? Well, he stole the series. He played exceptionally well.
See, and I'm going to disagree with you.
Well, I was going to qualify that. He was able to steal the series because the Maple Leafs' big guns were just not
well,
there, and they were invisible.
And the other side was every loss. There were horrific individual mistakes.
Welcome to the show. If you thought people were dunking on the Oilers after they got bounced in 4, have you perused social media in the last 12 hours or so since the Maple Leafs were eliminated in round number 1? Maple Leafs fans are welcome to listen to the program as well. We're underway on this Tuesday afternoon with Will and Pat and Logan. And as Rick texted in yesterday, happy annual Leafs elimination in the first round of the playoffs day. And he ended up being correct. That was awful last night. I had almost the exact same feeling watching that game as I did watching Game 7 of the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals in Vancouver when the Canucks had absolutely nothing against the Boston Bruins. I had the same feeling that I had watching Calgary and Anaheim Game 7 in 2006 where the home team at the Saddledome had absolutely nothing. That was listless. There was no urgency until it was way too late. Well, they looked like a nervous, they looked like a shell-shocked, and they looked like a really bad hockey team last night. The team that was supposed to win that series and the team that had a 3-1 series lead looked like the second-best team that didn't have what it took to answer the bell for way too long last night. And here we are, another first-round exit for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm curious. A couple of people texted in yesterday and vehemently disagreed with my take about the mental hurdle that the Leafs faced in a Game 7.
Sure felt mental yesterday.
Boy, was that ever a mental hurdle or what yesterday? Apparently it does, relate and certainly the comparison to the Capitals and the Penguins or anybody else we talked about yesterday. Yeah, I think that you look at that, and that was the other thing too that you and I both talked about, and I put it out there. You certainly didn't disagree that the longer that game yesterday remained scoreless and or close, the more it favored the Montreal Canadiens, and we saw that play out yesterday. As soon as Brendan Gallagher scores that goal, which Jack Campbell would likely want back, that's a tough mental hurdle to get over. Yep. When you're down 1-0, things hadn't gone your way in the first 25, 26 minutes of the game. And it's crazy, Pat. Games 5, 6, and 7. Guess how much the Maple Leafs led for?
I don't believe they led once.
0 seconds.
Because they had to come back from the 3-goal deficit in Game 5, the 2-goal deficit in Game 6, and then obviously did not come back last night. Yeah, it was not good enough. Here's a few reactions from last night from those players in blue and white.
The goals are higher than what we achieved this year, and it makes the disappointment much worse. And I mean, we feel it, and we realize that we let an opportunity slip, and that's not acceptable by our standards, and it makes the loss a lot worse than anything we've had to deal with before.
It's kind of hard to obviously sum up. It's frustrating. It's a game of inches out there, and I'm not really sure how to sum it up. It's obviously extremely frustrating, just all around.
Especially come playoff time, you want to be the guy to go to and the guy that can lead the team out of a series. And we had multiple looks every single game. It just seems like it's a thing that's not going in. So really no excuse. If you want that puck to go in the net, create a chance that it did go in the net. That's kind of what it comes down to.
In order, Morgan Riley, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner. What's that stat, Will? Nylander, Marner, Matthews in series clinching games?
Well, I got a few for you. First off, on those three individuals you just mentioned, they've all combined for 3 goals and 7 points in 7 games when trying to clinch a playoff series. And Marner, the last man you heard from in that clip, he has more penalty minutes than points in series clinching games.
Whew.
That's correct. Mitch Marner, the big goon who racks up penalty minutes, has more penalty minutes than points in those 7 series clinching games. 2 penalty minutes, 1 point. Matthews has a goal and an assist for 2 points, and Nylander has the most. He's got 2 goals and 4 points in those 7 series clinching playoff games. Here's perhaps the craziest stat of all of those, Pat. We talked before the playoffs about Austin Matthews and how right now he might be the most dangerous goal scorer in the game. He has 32 shots on goal in those 7 series clinching games, 1 goal. That's a 3.2 shooting percentage. That just sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, those are 3 guys that you're looking at and wondering, when they're going to show up in these type of games, because it hasn't happened while wearing a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey.
Playoff time, everything's much tighter, and they're obviously a team that defends well. They have great goaltending, and in my opinion, I don't think we had any shortage of chances.
That's Matthews again. Is he and Marner combined for just 1 goal in these?
Curious what you
games.
think, Pat. I heard it in the clip from Joe Bowen coming in. You just heard it there from Matthews. A couple other players had mentioned it. I certainly think it played a factor. Don't get me wrong. He was brilliant last night. But to sit here and say Carey Price stole the game, I think is a little unfair.
No, I didn't think I thought Price made some big stops. Don't get me wrong. He made the one post-to-post stop. There were a couple of really good saves that he made in scrambles. I thought Price was the better of the 2 goalies last night, but by no means did I think that he stole the game, because
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, like he was good. He was part of why they won, but it's not like Toronto can come out of that game 7 and be like, no, we left everything out there. The only thing that beat us was a goalie. That's when a goalie steals a game 7. The Maple Leafs did not leave everything out there. I'm sorry. Mitch Marner did not leave everything out there. I didn't mind what I saw from Matthews last night. At least he looked dangerous. But Marner with a turnover to create the first goal, yes, should have been stopped by Campbell. I definitely grant you that if you're a Leafs fan. But no, again, the best players on that team in a situation where they had an opportunity to advance did not get the job done. And you cannot rely on players like Thornton, who I thought had lots of jump last night, and Spezza, who was dangerous throughout the entire series. But you can't be continually counting on guys like that. And yeah, Jack Campbell said that was the worst goal that he's ever let in his career, and it wasn't a great goal, but
that's probably a bit aggressive.
Here he is last night.
It's just tough. Like, I just think of how hard our team battled, and for it to end on a goal, worst goal of my career, and happen in game 7, it's not acceptable. And, I think the team counts on me to be better, and I know I can be a lot better than that.
I mean, I respect in one breath a guy trying to put it all on his shoulders and saying it's all on him. But this is one of the highest scoring, most dangerous teams in the NHL, and a 1-goal deficit should not be the death knell, and that's exactly what it was last night. As soon as Gallagher scored that goal, body language and just what you saw in terms of the slump from Toronto, it was, and that's why I say, Will, like, I when Bergeron scored late in the first period in Game 7 in Vancouver in 2011, when Solani scored in the second period to break a scoreless tie in that 7th game against Calgary in 2006, and I know different eras, and that one's 10 years and one's 15 years, I get that, but it just, I had the same feeling, like, no, and then once Perry scored that power play goal, you knew it was over. Like, nothing about the way the Maple Leafs looked, played, and resembled last night felt like a team that was going to be able to come back if they did not score the first goal. And as you mentioned, in 3 games with their opportunity to advance, they led for a grand total of 0 minutes. Like, yeah, this can't happen. This is a monumental collapse after all that they accomplished this year, all that they did at the trade deadline. Like, it is a monumental failure.
Probably their worst, I think, in the history here with this core group. And it's crazy. You mentioned the the games 5, 6, and 7 where they didn't lead in this series for even 1 second. How about the last 3 sudden death games with a chance to win? 2019, Game 7 against Boston. Last year in the bubble in the play-in round, Game 5 against Columbus. And last night, Game 7 against Montreal. The Maple Leafs have scored 2 goals on 97 shots.
Oof. And again, Price was very good in Game 6 in the second half of that game. Without question,
Yep.
he was. And was very good in Game 5 in overtime as well when he made, 13 stops? No, was it away? Was Game 6 the early overtime goal or Game 5?
Game 5 is a minute in. I don't think he made 1 save in overtime.
Game
Game
6
6
yes.
is what you're thinking of, where they were outshot 13-2, and Kotkaniemi scored the winner. Yeah.
He was very good. Don't get me wrong. But again, how you take a look at last night, how many of those shots through the first 20, 25, 30 minutes came from the outside? And then it's 2-0 Toronto, and then that power play to start the third period. It was pretty pedestrian, all things considered. Yeah, I of this group, the Columbus loss, they ran the Columbus loss in the bubble last year. That was far more about a goaltender or a couple of goaltenders stealing things. This one, no, I can't come away. If you're a Leafs fan, you cannot come away from that. I don't think very many are saying, no, we just got goalied by Carey Price. Price was, we talked about it yesterday, right? If there's a goalie that you trust for a Game 7, Price is the leading guy regardless of what he's done prior in the regular season. And he was that. You could count on him last night. But no, I'm with you. Was not just Price yesterday. And as we welcome you to the program, it's Steinberg and Nault and Logan with you on a Tuesday big show from the Iconic studio, powered by Iconic Electric and Controls. Maintenance, it's Iconic. Visit iconicec.ca to find out more. As you can imagine, my friend, this is not going over well in that market. Tell me if this sounds familiar on our sister station, Sportsnet 590 last night.
Pathetic, gutless, by far the biggest dog's breakfast of a Game 7 that I've ever seen in my entire life. That was the most boring, uninspiring, zero effort by 95% of the players.
We're sick and tired of this core blowing it all the time. Mitch Marner is like a kid. He's scared to get hit out there. He's got no heart. And this is the worst loss by far in the playoff. I'm 63 years old, and it's by far the worst loss in our history.
I've run out of a logical explanation for what is wrong with this franchise, so I'm turning to the illogical, and I'm not really superstitious, but I'm telling you, we're cursed. This franchise is cursed.
So there's just a little smattering. Those were actual calls. Those were not my friends.
I love the 63-year-old from Newfoundland. Give me that guy all day long, baby.
Mitch.
Blowing it all the time. Mitch Marner.
I love the accent. I'm with you.
Just all day long. I can listen to that guy talk.
Sounds a little bit like this market, and I'm not. I do not think that these are carbon copies of one another. I don't.
But there's a lot of people on the text line already today that are saying it's carbon copies, and I'm like, are you kidding?
There are similarities for sure in that is 5 straight trips to the postseason with 0 series wins, including a loss in the qualification round last year. So I see that there are similarities. The difference, I guess, that I would see, there's a few of them. Like in this market, we're talking a lot about how change needs to be made. We're talking a lot about how it's time for at least one piece of the core to go. And that is going to be the dominant conversation about the Flames for the next number of months until it happens or until we get to training camp. And I do think those conversations are being had in some quarters in Toronto. I mean, definitely there were some of those calls. I saw it on Twitter last night. This guy's got to go. It's time to trade Marner for Seth Jones. I saw those things, but I think, tell me why you see it differently, because I think we're probably on the same page.
Well, I see one team with elite talent and one team without it. I think that, there are certainly comparisons to performance in the playoffs, but I'd take the Leafs roster over Calgary's all day long.
It's that, and then I also look at it, and that elite talent, those core players that to this point have not been able to get it done, are also younger. Like Matthews is 23, Marner's 24, so we're talking about guys who are specifically on the Monahan, Gaudreau front.
And they
are
made it
younger.
5 times in a row, not make it, miss it, make it, miss it, make it, miss it.
And that was
So
my
there's
third
that
point.
too.
They've been a playoff team. And yes, they went out in the qualification round last year. I get that. But let's be honest, they would have very easily been a playoff. Well, I mean, I guess they were kind of hanging in the balance, but I think they would have been a playoff team had the season ended regularly and wouldn't have been playing Columbus. They probably still would have lost in the first round, but I still consider that, much like I consider Edmonton's playoff berth despite a qualification round loss, I still look at that as a playoff berth for the Oilers last night. But it is interesting that this happens and it's 5 straight years and they can't get past. What type of changes can be made? I don't think you can come back exactly the same and sell that to your fans. I don't know if, like, the talk, as much as I have my questions about what Marner is, do I think Marner is an elite talent in this league? I think he has got an elite skill set, but I don't look at him as a guy that you build a team around solely. But I don't think it's time to trade that guy. I don't think it's time to start talking crazy like that. But I do think that there are going to be some pretty significant questions that need to be answered between the pipes with some of your veteran players. I don't think that group looks exactly the same next year because no team does. But on the outside, and maybe this is because we're in this market and we're not in that market, Will, but I'm kind of with you. I don't think taking the igniter or the whatever the thing that you push when you blow up TNT is called, without taking that thing and blowing it up, that's not where I am with Toronto right now. I don't
detonator?
think detonator, thank you. I don't think it's time to push the detonator when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't.
No, that's completely fair. I agree with you. I think your point about the age is bang on too. And, there's a lot of good young players that haven't won anything. And we're looking at a guy in Colorado or a core group in Colorado that hasn't got over the hump yet. It's completely different. I get that. They haven't been stubbing their toe in round one necessarily. But, there's certainly different ways to look at it. The other thing too is maybe why it's a little more interesting in Toronto, Pat, is you look and, that core group, it's not like they're signed for the next 7 years. They only have a few more kicks at the can before they've likely got to make a decision, or people in Toronto who fear the worst, and that's Austin Matthews darting south to his home state of Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the other point too, is they don't necessarily have all these guys locked up for the next 6-7 seasons.
No, and their window is definitely still very finite as it stands right now, absolutely. But for next year, yeah.
How much did Mike Babcock like those last 3 games, eh?
Keep talking about Mike Babcock while I go find the audio.
I'm pretty sure Mike Babcock, who also talks about Mike Babcock in the third person, would have liked to watch those 3 games, and I don't think he's shedding any tears for this team that had 0 seconds of a lead in games 5, 6, and 7. So let's see what happens here.
Almost there. I hate how slow these computers are.
I couldn't really buy you more time on that.
I know.
Sorry.
I can't find it.
I'm decent at talking. I'm not that good though.
I can't find your Mike Babcock drop. I don't know where you put it.
I think it's just called Mike Babcock.
Scrambled. I think they're beautiful. It's just how you look at it.
That's all I got for Mike Babcock.
That's okay.
Mike Babcock. What do they do in net next year? Freddie Anderson's a UFA. Do they let him walk? Is it Jack Campbell next year?
Yeah, of course. They have to. Flat cap. Campbell's salary is already locked in. He's your starter, no questions asked, in my opinion.
Well, and it also gives you a little flexibility depending on what they do with their number 2 spot. Maybe they bring back Riddick back, and he's their number chance. 2. I doubt that. But maybe they go with Campbell at a really low salary.
Give him a third rounder for a guy who never dressed in the playoffs too. Nice work, Dubas.
Well, and what did they give up for Foligno to win 3 games? And they did a lot at the deadline and won 3 playoff games out of it. I think you got to come back with Campbell. Get yourself another reliable under $2 million backup or tandem mate if you can. And that gives you the ability to go do other things in free agency. That gives you ability to re-sign Zach Hyman, which I think will be their number 1 priority. See what he ends up getting. I'm curious about Spezza. I'm curious about Simmons. I'm curious about Thornton. I don't know. I honestly have no gut feel as to what happens with those guys. They all played pretty well in their only year in Toronto, but they're also guys that, do you take another kick at the can with that group? Do you try to recapture what you got from Spezza? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I do wonder what they do on the outsides of the roster. The other thing too, it's at points Spezza was maybe one of your better players in that series, but at the end of the day, did the Simmons and Thorntons and Spezzas of the world move the needle for them?
Only guy that I think really did was Spezza. He gave him some solid secondary scoring this year, but how many more kicks at that does he have? Like, does he have another season like that in him? This was already a renaissance season for Jason Spezza. I find it hard to believe that he all of a sudden is going to be able to do that again. He had a very good year. I give him a ton of credit. But, does he have another 30-point if you prorate that? Does he have another 45, 50-point season? Then probably not. So they're in tough. That is a brutal loss. And again,
how about a guy texting in saying the Leafs need players that drag him into battles and then follows it up by saying Backlund would be a good pickup? Yeah, because when I think of guys that drag you into the fight, it's Michael Backlund.
And I love Back.
That's a weird comparison.
That is a strange comparison.
I love Backlund, but he's not a guy who drags you into the battle.
Very good player. I don't know if that's the number one thing that you think of when you think of Michael Backlund, though. More on this loss, plus an impressive Islanders win last night. Team Canada is officially moving on at the Worlds. All that. Peter Labardius joins us next. It's Pat, it's Will, it's Logan. The Big Show's underway. Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
You're listening to The Big Show. The Big Show on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Streaming now through the Sportsnet mobile app. This is The Big Show. Sportsnet 960 The Fan, Calgary.
Flames Insider, Peter Lubardius, brought to you by the Gemini Group Home Renovations. Your home renovations should be a reflection of who you are. Give your home the Gemini difference. The Gemini Group, now offering Air Miles reward miles. Visit GeminiGroup.ca.
Hour one of the program well underway. It's Pat Steinberg and Will Nault and Logan Gordon, and now the color voice of the Calgary Flames, Peter Labardius, joins us in his regular spot. Hello, Lou. Let's just before we get into last night's epic Maple Leafs collapse, we now officially know that Canada will be moving on from the group stage at the Worlds. They were completely out of their hands in a lot of ways, but they're moving on.
There were literally 9 things that had to happen in the last 3 days in order for that to occur. Now, they had a much easier path this morning had they been able to take care of their own business, and they were 4 minutes away from doing that against Finland with a 2-1 lead, but couldn't quite get that done. But the point put them in a position where as long as Latvia and Germany did not go to overtime, and one of those two teams won in regulation, which, as it turns out, the Germans jumped into a 2-0 lead and hung on for a 2-1 win, that yes, Canada, after the miserable 0-3 start and needing, almost a mini miracle of things to happen along the way, teams beating other teams, they're in. I don't know how long they're going to last facing the juggernaut Russians, the Russian Olympic Committee, by the way, on their jerseys these days.
Yes.
ROC,
and we don't
ROC, which was different than what we saw in 2018 when they were
Team Orr. Come on, Team Orr.
Team Orr, yes, and not Bobby or Robert Gordon.
No. The Olympic athletes of Russia.
Yes, the Olympic athletes of Russia, and they didn't even need a boat at the end for the Orr, although they were a minute away from losing to the Germans in the gold medal game. So,
come on, David Wolf.
Yeah, come on, David
and
Wolf.
Funny enough, in French, the word for gold is or.
Anyway. Yes, I knew that. Yes.
Completely useless comment. Continue your conversation.
Well, it's the conversation now, thanks to that gem that you threw in the middle, is pretty much over. Canada has advanced to the quarterfinals, and will probably need about a 40-save effort from Darcy Kemper, who hasn't exactly himself set the world on fire in this tournament, to give the Russians any kind of battle. But the Russians are funny in this event because I've seen them stumble at this event over the years when maybe they didn't regard their opponent the way that they should. So good on those guys because it was not a lot of fun early, and they got a few breaks and get to play on Thursday.
Did, coincidental, maybe not, but did seem like fortune started to change a little bit when
sure.
Mr. Mangiapane joined the group.
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit earlier this week, too. He absolutely did. He solidified that line with Brown and Adam Henrique, the captain of the team. They didn't score, period, until Andrew arrived on the scene, and he really made a big difference. Didn't score today, but, was in around it on that power play. So, yeah, he really, really changed the fortunes, and, it just made me sick to my stomach in the last game against Vancouver, when Dylan Dubé went down and suffered that injury, because, trust me, Dylan would be making a massive difference on that team if he went over and had an opportunity to play.
Yep. Okay. What did you observe last night in Toronto?
Well, I think the overall question for me is, and I heard you use the phrase, epic collapse, and I think it's fair. I think it's fair. Last week, Patty, when you were gone, Will and I and Logan had a conversation, and neither, I'd say it's fair, Will, wouldn't you say? None of us saw that coming.
No.
If you listen to us going into Game 5, it seemed to be fait accompli, and it was not fait accompli. And I don't know what to say outside of the fact that, that shouldn't have happened, even without Tavares and losing Muzzin in Game 6 and not having him available. And, would John have made a big difference? Yes, I do. I do think that he would have, but to the Leafs, did they still have enough depth and enough good pieces where at 3-1 they should have been able to close it? Yes. And, for Matthews and Marner, and I'm not laying it all at their feet because that's a little unfair, your best people have to get it done. They didn't get it done. You score 40 in the regular season. I need more than that. And you guys hear it all too often, over the years from me. This is when I judge. And, I'm not going to make light of the fact that the regular season matters and you have to get into the playoffs, but sorry, I'd give about 10. Wouldn't you think Toronto would give about 5 or 8 of those back to have 3 more from Austin Matthews in this series?
Yep.
No question.
You don't win championships during the regular season. And the problem for the Leafs is, where do you go now? Is this, I was thinking about it today. Now, if you go back, when you guys were young, when you go back to the early 90s and you think about some of the early 90s struggles for the Detroit Red Wings, you could draw some parallels, except here's the difference. Toronto still hasn't won a playoff series. Detroit got themselves,
they were going to conference finals and to second rounds and stuff like that.
And having great battles with Colorado, and they lost to New Jersey in 95. And, but it took them, my point is they lost to the Leafs in 93 when Borshevsky scored in Game 7. And, so sometimes it takes a little bit more time with, still very young people, and we don't always think about Matthews and Marner as young people. However, that is the difference, guys, is, there was one against Toronto, there was another against San Jose for that Detroit team, but there was a lot of knocking on the door. This team hasn't even opened it yet. And this one is a little different. Well, I would say I can't judge the Boston or the Tampa or the Washington. But with the type of people that they have, put together on their team, you can't lose in the bubble, and you certainly shouldn't have lost this series.
Mm-hmm. Lou, Pat and I kicked this around last segment. We'll just bring you in the conversation. Obviously, it's not a direct comparison or parallel, but do you see any similarities between this group here and Toronto when it comes to stumbling in the postseason?
Oh, no. Some, I guess. What were you guys, if you don't mind letting me in on where you went with it? Now, again, if you're saying, are there similarities between a core that hasn't been able to get over? There's some similarities.
I think Pat can jump in and disagree if he will, but for us, I think it was more of just, exactly what you're talking about in terms of a core group that couldn't get over, and now there seems to be a ton of question on the outside if it is the right core group. But for Pat and I, and this is where, Pat, you can jump in if you disagree, but I think we're on the same page that, you'd take Toronto's pieces over Calgary's, and I think they've got higher-end pieces than Calgary does. And it's not even really comparable in that sense. But I just think the conversation from the outside is where we see, if any, similarity. Hey, Pat?
Yeah, and the only thing that I'd add on that is that the Toronto pieces also younger than Calgary's pieces. Matthews 23, Marner 24. To your point a little earlier, Lou.
Yeah, well, here's what I would say. When you think about Calgary's playoff scenarios in recent years, the ones that we talk about all the time, they were only really favored once in that situation. So, even, you go back to 2015, they start on the road in Vancouver. This is a very different situation. Did they finish first in the West in 2018, 2019? Yes. But this Leafs team, to me, guys, has been building to the point where, didn't we think that this group had some championship caliber ability, especially after some of the changes that they made?
Mm-hmm.
Like, anything less than a Final Four appearance for this group, for me, take nothing away from the team that beat them, take nothing away from a very good Edmonton team. Like, this team, to me, the difference is had way different expectations. At least the way I see it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep.
And I think it goes back, Will, to the elite talent that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not even a conversation. I'd take Toronto's pieces over Calgary's all day, every day. Not even close. So, despite their struggles that we just talked about. So, yeah.
That's Calgary's trying to, get
to
more
that.
Towards
that's the other thing too that Pat and I
Toronto
talked about. Exactly. They've made it 5 times in a row. Calgary's made it, missed it, made it, missed it, made it, missed it. So
right.
That's also part of the getting to just be a consistent playoff team is probably the next step. On the other side, Lou, before we move on from this game, I know we're going to jump around a couple of other series, but
sure.
What do you say to Montreal? Because a lot of the talk is on Toronto and how they didn't show up, but there's some credit that needs to go the other way too.
Well, the Leafs, depending on how you look at it, needless to say where I'm coming to you from today, it's not a very happy place, and it shouldn't be. What I would say is, Montreal, I remember well vividly because we referenced it in one of our hits last week, when Brendan Gallagher, before game number 5, talked about going out and being down and being disappointed and embracing the situation and believing that they could be better, it's hard to argue, isn't it, with what they were able to do from game 5 on. And while I do think this is a way more Toronto failed than maybe to Montreal's great credit, I mean, that still took a lot to get done. And, they turned it on. And when I think about this series, I mean, a lot of focus is going to be on last night because it's the decider. Early in Game 5 will stick with me in this series for a long time. The Leafs had them. The Leafs had them with very little belief coming out of Montreal, going home, and they let them off the hook. And when that water tap starts dripping, it can be really hard to shut it off. And Montreal grew in belief. And what I will say is this, Will. You can't play a better game for how Montreal had to play than they did last night. Can't do it. They dictated pace. They gave up virtually nothing. Toronto had 14 shots through 2 periods. Now, was that in part attributed to the Leafs' lack of pushback? Yes. Mm-hmm. But Montreal very much dictated how those last couple of games were played.
Yeah.
And their, whether it was Deneau winning 70% of the defensive zone draws, how miserable, their big four on defense can be to play against. As a group, they did a great job of doing what they had to do to give themselves a chance.
Yeah.
So they deserve a lot of credit. They deserve a lot of credit for getting that series to even be contested. Because if you replay our conversation from a week ago, it was done. Signed, sealed, and delivered. But obviously, you need to win 4. Thanks, Captain Obvious, who, by the way, has a new ad out, and it's outstanding.
Well, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, I can't wait to watch it.
It's pretty good. It's not
no Janet,
the best one.
It's no Janet.
No, and the best one is still I don't need it right now. And here in the Toronto area, they don't need it right now.
No question. How about in Boston last night? He needed it right now, and that's Casey Cizikas. He snaps a 47-game postseason goalless drought dating all the way back to April of 2015. I was listening to him after the game in an interview. He said, saw that loose puck, and I don't think I've ever been so excited in my life. He goes in, makes no mistake on the breakaway, and the Islanders escape. They're going to make that thing a series, Lou.
They're not really interested in anything but, and it's easy to point to, right? With Barry Trotz and Lou Lamoriello, and, I'm not trying to rub it in, but the Islanders seem to have won quite a few playoff series since Lou Lamoriello went to the Islanders and left the Leafs.
So have the Leafs. Oh, wait. No, they haven't. My bad.
No, that's not fair of me, but, because they've done some really good things in this area too. But, the Islanders are just one of those groups that their work is rarely anything less than really, really good. And when your work is good and your structure is good and you play within yourself, you give yourself a chance. Mm-hmm. And, that's what they do. And they're physical and, they can be hard to play against, including the guy that scored the overtime winner. And I've had a bit of a soft spot for a long time for Casey because no one should ever go through the hat trick he went through in 2011. And if you're not familiar, in 2011, Casey Cizikas was part of Canada's World Junior team that let a 3-0 lead go in the third period against the Russians in Buffalo, lost Game 7 in overtime at home to Owen Sound in the Ontario Hockey League final, and then lost to the St. John Sea Dogs in the final of the Memorial Cup. That's a bad hat trick.
Wow.
So that's not a good hat trick. So he was a great kid to deal with. I always have enjoyed my time interviewing him. So I've always had a bit of a soft spot. He works his tail off. He's a good kid, and so I was happy when he scored that goal last night.
Peter Labardius is with us as we continue along on the big show this afternoon. Just before we let you go, Lightning took Game 1 against the Hurricanes. I thought that Game 1 was exactly what I was hoping it to be. It was hot. It was tightly contested. It was intense. Like I cannot wait for Game 2 tonight. What did you see in Game 1? What are your thoughts heading into Game 2 tonight?
Exactly the same, Pat. These are two really, really good teams. Thought just because of an extra day, not a lot of days, but an extra day, let's not discount the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're a whale of a team. Carolina, to me, has, of all the teams in the NHL in a lot of ways, I'd say they've probably been the team that has grown and progressed the most over the last few years. They're legit. They're completely legit. Both these teams play with great pace. They have skill. Tampa obviously has more experience. So, will I be surprised if it's 6 games and ridiculously entertaining night in and night out? No, I'll be disappointed, in fact, if it's not.
All right, pal. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, guys. Have a great day.
Flames Insider, Peter Lubardius, brought to you by the Gemini Group Home Renovations. Your home renovations should be a reflection of who you are. Give your home the Gemini difference. The Gemini Group, now offering Air Miles Reward Miles. Visit GeminiGroup.ca.
The first ever franchise superstar joined the Flames organization 45 years ago today. Can you guess who it is? We'll tell you next on this date in Flames history. Stay with us on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
So, we got a bunch of motor mouths on afternoons, eh? They're not done talking yet. It's The Big Show on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Let's go back in time and celebrate the amazing history of the Calgary Flames. Today in Flames history starts now.
Today in Flames history, brought to you by Wild Rose Brewery, keeping quality beer and food in the hands and bellies of Albertans. Check out wildrosebrewery.com for delivery or pick up some takeout from the Curry Barracks.
All right, June 1st, no games have ever taken place on June 1st for the Calgary Flames. However, I did give you a slight trivia question before the break, and that was, hey, name the future franchise superstar who joined the organization on this date 45 years ago. I had a Lanny McDonald guess. No, Lanny was not drafted by the Flames, was traded to the team in 1981. No, the answer is Kent Nielsen, who started the famous trade tree. He was drafted by the Atlanta Flames at the NHL draft on this date in 1976. They drafted him out of Sweden in the 4th round, 64th overall. He would go on to play 425 games with Atlanta and Calgary, recording 229 goals, 333 assists, and 562 points. He still holds the franchise record for points in a single season with 131 in the 80-81 season. And Kent Nielsen, who, if you ask people who cheered for this team in their very earliest days, in the early 1980s, he was the, whether you want to point to Lanny McDonald or Joe Nieuwendyk or Johnny Gaudreau or Theo Fleury or Jarome Iginla, that was Kent Nielsen in the early 1980s in this city. And yes, when he was traded, he would start the trade tree. It would lead to Joe Nieuwendyk, who would lead to Jarome Iginla, and now that trade tree has unfortunately been chopped down. But yes, will Kent Nielsen drafted on this date in 1976? I've gone deep into the weeds on this date in Flames history into June. We're going back to the 70s for Atlanta Flames drafts even.
I don't know, Pat. I would suggest that the trade tree only got more famous as it went along. It's just my belief. But
well, unfortunately, Morgan Klimchuk
scored 40 goals last year. What are you talking about?
Kenny Agostino and
40 goals.
Ben Hanowski never really. Then Klimchuk.
Ben scored in his first game.
He sure did. I remember it was one of the worst goals I've ever seen in my life. He did though. And then, and then
what
Klimchuk
Ben just took.
For no reason.
What an absolute beating he just took. Your reaction was just gold.
Agostino's still kicking around at least. And then
I believe he played a game for the Leafs this year.
Klimchuk turned into Andrew Nielsen, who is now no longer with the organization. So the trade tree has officially been ended. But yes, 1976 NHL draft was on this date 45 years ago. Flames would also select Cold Lake product David Shand with their first round pick. He was 8th overall.
Big Shand guy.
Never would suit up in Calgary. Did play 288 games with the organization. So that was on this date in 1976. This was kind of interesting, and I remember this vividly. We take you back 10 years ago. The Flames made a trade 10 years ago today. So Tim Eriksson, who was a first-round pick of the team, had basically informed the team 2 years after being drafted in the first round in 2009 that, I wasn't really interested in signing with the team. So at the time, general manager Jay Feaster traded Tim Eriksson to the New York Rangers, the team that he was only interested in going to. His father had ties to the Rangers. Got a pretty good haul for a guy who at that point had never played an NHL game and left them no choice. Flames acquired forward Roman Horak at a pair of 2011 second-round picks who turned into Marcus Granlund and Tyler Wotherspoon in exchange for Eriksson. Now, none of those three players would turn into longtime Calgary Flames.
#free Wotherspoon.
That's a throwback, too. That's a long-time throwback. But they still were able to get three assets for Tim Eriksson, and I know that they never really turned into anything, but it's one of the reasons that I still wonder what could have happened if Adam Fox was not included in the Carolina deal. We'll never know, but they did trade Tim Eriksson on this date in 2011. Eriksson, all of 93 NHL games since that time with the Rangers, Blue Jackets, Blackhawks, and Maple Leafs. He is now back in Sweden, so he forced a trade out of Calgary, but never really turned into a very good NHLer.
Gotta be honest, I don't understand, and you and Pinder are obviously the biggest ones on it in this station, but I don't get the hatred for including Adam Fox in that deal. Like, I don't think that deal gets made without the inclusion of Adam Fox if you're Carolina. And, I mean, okay, they could have traded him for a couple of second-rounders that maybe would have turned into nothing in terms of, Granlund and Wotherspoon. It seems like a very weird thing to be angry about or to have a bone to pick. It's like, who cares? He wasn't signing here. He wasn't ever going to sign here. And you probably weren't going to get a ton for him elsewhere unless you traded him to the Rangers. And I don't know if they ever went down that road or even tried. And again, I don't know if the deal gets made without the inclusion of Adam Fox.
I think you could have still made a deal without Fox. Like, from everything I have been able to glean about that trade, I mean, he kind of told them that he wasn't going to sign, and then they just added him to the trade to get it done. I feel like if the Hurricanes were able to get a couple of second-round picks for Fox for a guy that couldn't sign, maybe the Flames could have added something else to the Carolina trade. Look, we don't know, but I feel like you still could have done the Hamilton, Ferland for Lindholm, Hanifin if you added something else instead of Fox, is the only point I make. Does it bother me? No. I think Carolina was able to leverage Fox for a couple of second-round picks, and maybe they didn't go down the road of trying to trade him to the New York Rangers, but maybe they could have and gotten something back.
It just seems like a very weird thing to be mad about. That's all. That's all I'm just.
I would not say that it keeps me up at night though. But
keeps Pinder up at night though.
It might keep Pinder up at night. Finally, happy birthday to former Flame Dan Quinn, forward born in Ottawa on this date in 1965, was a first-round pick in 1983. He'd played 222 games with the Flames, 72 goals, and 191 points. So a franchise superstar drafted, a trade, and a birthday this date in Flames history.
Today in Flames history, brought to you by Wild Rose Brewery, keeping quality beer and food in the hands and bellies of Albertans. Check out wildrosebrewery.com for delivery or pick up some takeout from the Curry Barracks.
We are underway on the program this afternoon. It's Pat Steinberg, Will Nault, and Logan Gordon along with you. We've got lots to dive into in the next few hours. A few texts on what we have been talking about so far today. The Leafs need a seasoned coach like Bruce Boudreau to manage players' ice time. I don't know if I come away from this game or this series putting this one on Sheldon Keefe. And you know, it's funny, you brought up earlier, I still haven't been able to find the clip, but you brought up earlier about Mike Babcock. You know, I thought that he was... Mike Babcock. I think you're probably right, that he probably is like chuckling a little bit that it hasn't gotten done. Of
course he is.
He
was outed as the problem.
And it clearly, I don't believe this is a coaching problem. I don't think Babcock got out-coached when they lost in the first round. I don't think that Keefe got out-coached. There's only so much a coach can do to get elite players for 95% of a hockey year to remain elite when it matters the most. I don't know what coach is going to be able to get that out of Matthews or to get that out of Marner necessarily. Like, I'm not saying that Sheldon Keefe is just going to win every Jack Adams from now until the end of time, but I didn't come away from this saying, oh boy, and maybe we're not close enough, maybe we're not in that market again, Will, but I didn't come from the outside, come away from it pointing the finger squarely at Sheldon Keefe.
No, I think it's hard to point your finger and say it's a coaching issue at this point. I mean, he's setting records for wins in terms of, 100 games behind a Leafs bench, and he's done a lot of good things behind that bench. So no, I don't think it's a coaching problem at all. I just know that, Mike Babcock certainly enjoyed watching those.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right on that front. And I also think that, this is now going to be.
Lost still getting paid $8 million.
Is that how much he was making?
Okay.
Oh boy, Mike. Is that how much he was making? $8 million?
Oh yeah.
Whew.
No. No, it's 5.875 a year.
Closer to $8 million than I'm making. I'll know that much.
5.875.
I see Logan has found the treasure trove of Mike Babcock.
8-year contract, though. Oof.
So 8 years and more than $40 million. That's what it was when it was all said and done. Well, this topic is not going to be able to escape our next guest. There it is. That's the one that I was looking for all along. A former Leaf joins us next. Apparently,
Mike Babcock.
No, it's not Mike Babcock. Oh. Matt Stajan's teams never win on Mondays, Flames or the Maple Leafs. We'll get Matty's thoughts on that collapse when we come back on The Big Show. Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
The Big Show comes back with NHL insider Matt Stajan. Next, Sportsnet 960 The Fan. The Big Show is live with NHL insider Matt Stajan on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
All right, hour number 2 of the program is underway with Will Nault and Pat Steinberg, and now our NHL analyst Matt Stajan joins us. As I said to you in text earlier today, your former teams just don't do very well on Mondays, Matty. It's just not a good day for the Maple Leafs or the Flames this season.
No, that's very true, and yeah, I feel for a lot of my buddies are Maple Leaf fans, and they are not happy today. So we all know what Leaf Nation is feeling today, and hey, you got to give Montreal credit.
You don't really feel for them, though, do you? Like, let's be honest.
Well, honestly, I grew up a diehard Leafs fan, growing up in Toronto. But when you invest years of your life and then you're part of the team, and one day they trade you, that kind of goes away. And
you
maybe
don't
it'll slowly.
Exactly.
No, I'm not losing any sleep over it right now, but maybe down the road, but my buddies, and, I was talking to a few guys in Toronto today, like, there's a lot of jerseys hanging, being thrown out, and smashed TVs. Like, it's not pretty in that city today.
Are your parents still Leaf fans?
Oh yeah. A lot of my cousins and buddies, and my family for sure. That's they're all pretty upset today, but I don't know. My parents are a little bit. I think they followed my career, so I think they came with me to Calgary, and but they still watch with their opinions on things, and can't escape what happened again this year in the playoffs.
What would that, like, put yourself back in your time as a Maple Leaf? What would a loss and a collapse like this, what would it be like for a player right now in that market specifically?
I don't even know if I could explain it. Honestly, like, just because they were so favored, and the season they had, like, it's tough. And, I'm trying to think of something like, they haven't won a playoff round. Like, I was on the team in my rookie year, the last time the team won a playoff round. And I played in that Game 7. We beat Ottawa. That's 17 years ago. So it's I don't know how, those top guys, but hey, if you're getting paid $10 million and lots of money, when things are going well, you're getting all the credit and everything's rosy. But when things go sideways, that's going to be on you. And that's just the way, pro sports is, especially hockey. And, they got to face it now. I can't really explain the feeling other than, because it was a collapse, other than, the classic quote from Slapshot, they feel shame, I guess.
So yesterday, Will and I were talking, and he and I were on the same page. A couple of people in our text line were like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's completely different. And essentially we were talking about how this Maple Leafs group has never won. This core group has never won a playoff series, has never gotten over when they've had the opportunity to clinch here. They had 3 more opportunities to clinch, and they don't do it. And we kind of compared it to Vancouver not being able to get past Chicago, and Washington had their issues not being able to get over on Pittsburgh. A couple of other examples of teams that finally got over, but there is that mental hurdle all along. How much of a mental hurdle do you think the fact that they haven't gotten it done in the playoffs played into what we saw last night?
Yeah, it's definitely there. I don't think you can deny it. The one thing I would say is, just watching the games, it didn't feel like, a team, that wanted to win desperately. Like that Game 5, like Montreal was down and out, and you come out flat, and I know you get it to overtime, but it just that gave Montreal hope. I don't think, just you watch the different series, just the way the Leafs would drive the net and just cause stuff, when things aren't going well. Like they didn't lead in a hockey game after Game 4 and, do something like, give the goalie a little shove or, I think, you do those things. And the best way I could, describe it and compare to, maybe our team in Calgary here in 2015 is when you lose a top player like John Tavares, we lost Gio that year, your team can either, just kind of rally around that, or they can, just go away. And you should be able to rally. Like, it's a team sport, and you have to step up. And I remember we were up 3-1 in that series against Vancouver, and we went to Vancouver in Game 5, and we let one slip. Hiller had an amazing game, and we didn't play well. And I remember being so pissed off, and the guys were, the last game's the hardest one to win. And in Game 6, we were down 3-0 before we knew it too, because Vancouver had hope. But you got to dig and just find a way. And the Leafs didn't do that. Like, I can't sit here and say, that they looked like a team that really wanted it the last couple of games, and they were just kind of waiting for it to happen, and that's not how it works.
What do you think it takes to finally get over that hump? Like, I think of that Alex Burrows Game 7 winner that Vancouver scored against Chicago 10 years ago, and that was kind of their big exercising of demons. Obviously, they lose in the Stanley Cup final, but they kind of went unscathed until that point. Does it take a big break? Does it take something just going your way? What does it take, in your opinion, to get over that hump?
Yeah, well, you gotta make it happen. You can't just wait. If you wait, then you're year after year you're going to keep missing it. And you need a break, but you got to create your break. And for the Leafs, I feel like I don't think we can sit here and say they really were going after that. And the way their team's constructed too, like paying 4 guys or 3 guys over $10 million, like, it's tough. And they get players on discounts. They get the older guys coming in that help. And Jason Spezza had a great series. But if one of those guys get injured, or that your top 2 guys just don't play the way that they're going to play, you're not going to get a break. It's not just going to happen. And you think about their situation, this is probably the easiest playoff series they'll have. And I'm not taking anything away from Montreal, but look at their division next year. Like, they got Boston, Tampa, Florida to deal with, and Montreal again, and Ottawa's coming on. Like, they let one slip, and that's on them.
Matt Stajan's with us. He is our Tuesday NHL analyst on the Big Show. Will?
Matty, on the other side, what did you see from Montreal? Because games 5, 6, and 7, they didn't allow the Leafs to lead for any moment in those games. How much credit is due to Montreal here?
Well, lots of credit, and they knew if you put the roster beside each other, they knew they were the weaker team, and this is how it goes. Coaches prepare your team for playoffs. You come in with a game plan. You have meetings before the round. How are we going to beat these guys? How can we beat these guys? And Montreal stuck with it. Philip Deneau, say what you want about him. He didn't have any points, but his one job was to get Matthews and Marner off their game and not let them be the difference. And he did that. That line did that. Their top 4D did that. And that's one thing where Toronto maybe, you have home ice in 2 of those last 3 games, maybe switch something up. I know you're up 3-1 and you think you're going to figure it out, but, I would have tried to get those guys away from him. Not that some coaches are just so scared of, they're like, we don't want to show that we're scared. Our top guys can play against anybody on that team. But if they're not going, you got to give them some matchups, not just, the face-offs in the O-zone, which is obviously every team does, but just try and, mix it up a bit. And I didn't see a lot of adjustments from Toronto. They were I know the games were close, but you weren't leading in any games, and those guys needed to get going.
What else are you seeing, I guess, away from the Toronto and Montreal series? Let's stick in the North first, and I think we talked about this briefly last week, but how much is the rest going to help a team like Winnipeg? I think we see in the first game, maybe it plays in the favor of Montreal, the team fresh off a series, but as that series goes on, it has to favor the Jets to get that rest, right?
Yeah, for sure. And especially the way Montreal is built, and, they go 4 lines, everybody's got to be on. So, and Vancouver or Winnipeg is very similarly built, but I do like their team better. They both got stud goalies that have played well. So I think if I like Winnipeg in this series, just what I saw, both teams beat a team with high-end talent. I just think Winnipeg's depth is a little bit more than Montreal's, but, with Carey Price, you never know. But I think if this is a long series, I think both Toronto and Edmonton can be like, okay, we're both the same. But if one of these teams wins 4 or 5, whoever lost to the team that loses this series is gonna, it's gonna sting that city even more. Just to have that feeling that we lost to, like Montreal. That's like winning the Stanley. That was their Stanley Cup, beating the Toronto Maple Leafs that round. Let's be honest, that city is on fire right now. And if you came in before the playoffs, they would probably say, if we beat the Leafs, that's just as good as winning the Stanley Cup for them.
Matt, I just wanted to ask one more on Montreal before Will goes in a couple of different directions with you. I just wanted to get your take on what you've seen from Corey Perry so far in this postseason, because guys are kind of contemporaries, drafted a year apart. You both played in the Ontario Hockey League. You're very familiar with Corey from some of your battles against Anaheim while you were here in Calgary. Just here he is scoring big goals and being a difference maker for Montreal so far in the postseason. I can't imagine you're all that surprised, despite him being 36 years old.
Yeah, he's been great. He's exactly what they brought him in to do, and give him credit. The puck follows him around, right? He stands beside the net, he knows where to go, and the winning goal ends up being awesome and in. And that's what he's done his whole career. Obviously, he's not as impactful as he once was with his speed and all that, but he knows how to play the game the right way and get under the skin of the other team's goalie. Even things you don't notice. He's always yapping and he's doing what he needs to do. It was probably one of the. I'm not just saying that because they won the series, but if the Leafs bring in Corey Perry instead of someone else, maybe that he could have had an impact on that team. But good for him. I cringe saying that because he was in our heads a lot of the time, but he does what he does, and that puck seems to just follow him too.
Let's shift around here and go a little bit on the U.S. divisions. Matt Station's our guest, by the way, every Tuesday at this time on the Big Show, Sportsnet 960 The Fan. I asked this question on Twitter and yesterday to Pat. It's obviously, there's certainly a lot of ifs, and if injuries happen, I think it's pretty easy to change your answer. But at this rate, what you've seen so far, Matty, how difficult is it going to be to beat the Avalanche 4 times in 7 games?
Yeah, I don't see anybody beating the Avs, to tell the truth. Kadri's, I know he's a depth guy, but he's not playing, and they're still just rolling. They're the team to beat. I watched Tampa play, and they're, they got Vasilevsky in that who can be a difference maker. But we'll see, I guess. But, Tampa would be my best bet that could throw them off. Just because of what they know how to win and they've learned the hard way 2 years. But last year they put it all together. But I really, if I'm putting all my money on a team right now, I don't even see the Avs losing more than 3 more games in the playoffs, to tell you the truth.
What about Tampa, Carolina, the game tonight? The only one on the schedule tonight, and game 1 decided by 2-1 and some bad goals, or the bad goal to win it. Nedeljkovic certainly wants that back, as he didn't get the pad down in time on that wraparound type attempt. But a series that many were looking forward to heading in. Game 1 lived up to the hype, and that's 2 teams that play a very similar style in that best of 7.
Yeah, that's a entertaining series. Like if anybody has a chance to watch it, like that's how hockey should be played. And it's just high paced and the goaltenders are going to be the difference. And Dalkovich, he'd probably want that one back. He'd be the first to say that. But yeah, Carolina's right there with them. So we'll see how it goes. I do think the champs are the champs for a reason, and they have that swagger that you need to close out games. And I think my picks, whoever comes out of that series, and probably Colorado will be in the cup. But we've seen stranger things in the playoffs. But it's that hockey is so entertaining, and not to put a damper on the Leafs Montreal series, but it's just another level in my opinion when I watch the games.
Final one from me. You're up early, I'm guessing, with young children. Have you watched any of Mangiapane and Team Canada at the Worlds?
No, I've kept track a little bit. I haven't been able to really watch them. A little too early today. I think it was 2 a.m. they played, but
3 a.m.
I saw that they snuck in.
Come on, get up early, buddy.
I saw that they snuck in though into the playoff round. So I think a week ago that they would have taken that. So, and Mange has been there. He's turned things around for them. So I guess we'll see if they can. I think they play Russia. We'll see if they can upset Russia. Now, anything can happen.
Did you ever get a Worlds invite? I know you played World Juniors. Did you ever get a Worlds invite after a season was done?
So in 2006, we didn't make the playoffs in Toronto, and they said you're a possibility, and they kind of left me waiting. They're like, we want to wait till the first round's over to see if any other guys come, and of course, first round finished. They're like, yeah, we don't need you. I booked a trip with some friends and had everything ready to go. And then the day before, they're like, oh, we have an injury. You want to come? And I was like, I can't do that to my buddies. I've never, obviously looking back, I'm like, maybe I should have canceled it because there's nothing like representing your country. But I gave them 2 weeks. And then after that, I don't know. They didn't really ask me after that because they're probably mad I didn't go.
Where was the trip?
We went to England to watch some Premier League soccer. So we were in Manchester, and we went to watch Everton. It was quite the trip, actually. I enjoyed it, and but that's Hockey Canada. It's special. It's play for them, but sometimes you're kind of left in limbo, especially if you're a depth guy like I was, and that's the only really chance that they asked me.
Sounds like it was a good trip, though.
It was quite the trip. Yeah. I think in the world, actually, Canada ended up winning that year. I think it was the one in Russia. Ended up winning. If I recall, but my experience with the World Juniors was unbelievable, and I wanted to go every year if they wanted me. And then that year, they said, yeah, you're on the radar, and then they gave the call and said, nope, we don't need you. And then 5 days later, they call you. I'm literally driving to the airport right now. It's kind of hard to pull a U-turn on that, and a few buddies that have been waiting for the trip as well.
Yep, that sounds pretty fair to me. We'll talk to you next week, Matty. Thank you, man.
All right, guys. Take care.
Matt Stajan, our Tuesday NHL analyst, joins us on the Atlas Pizza and Sports Bar guest hotline, open for takeout and delivery. When you're tired of cooking, call 403-248-3344. Atlas Pizza and Sports Bars at 6060 Memorial Drive, Northeast.
That'd be like you, I'm trying to think what the equivalent would be. It'd be like you having a trip with buddies to go to an F1 race, and you get a call from Kirsch, and you've got to go cover an event, and you had to make a decision. I'm just trying to think of a similar
Like, hey, we've got.
And
this
what would you?
opportunity.
You'd probably choose the F1 trip. I mean, you'd tell.
Especially
Kirsch
if I was
where
on
to
my
go.
way to the airport. Absolutely, I would.
Beat
No,
it,
no.
Kirsch.
Yeah, Kirsch, get out of here. I'm trying to go on a holiday.
And knowing you, you'd probably be five
show.
pops deep already at the airport. So
I do like a good, especially if it's like a vacation. Yeah, if you can.
you like
get
a good
couple in
airport
before
buzz.
Yeah, a couple before the flight.
Oh, remember when you could just go to an airport and belly up to a bar and have a pint?
Oh.
Yeah, that was fun.
Kinda, but not really. It's been a long time. It sounds like we're getting close to that being back in our lives, but it's only like a partial memory at this point. Hopefully that can be rekindled very, very soon. Matty on the Atlas Pizza and Sports Bar guest hotline. We'll talk to him again next Tuesday. Hey, we've got green and gold football stories on both sides of the border to dive into next. One team finally has a new name. One team might be calling a superstar's bluff. We'll tell you about both next on The Big Show. Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
This is The Big Show on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. You're locked on to The Big Show, Calgary sports talk in the afternoon. Okay, smart speaker, play Sportsnet 960.
All right, two football teams, same color scheme. Where do we want to start, Will? We've got Edmonton or Green Bay. You choose. Or we'll just listen to Eve.
What'd I miss?
Said Edmonton or Green Bay. Where do you want to start? You choose.
And I was just jamming, and then you said, we'll just listen to Eve. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's go on Edmonton first. Keep it local.
Okay. The Edmonton football team is no longer, or the EE football team. You've got Edmonton finally changing their name. Now the Edmonton Elks. What do we think, gentlemen? It's a Steinberg. It's Nault. It's logo. What do we think of the Edmonton Elks?
I love the logo. I think the name is what it is. I think the first blush is, should there be an S there? But then you do a little bit more digging, and in fact, it's not totally wrong. And Merriam-Webster is actually on their side if you look at a dictionary. So, I think that the name, when you go all the way back to when this first started, 13, 14 months ago, it feels like that Elks was kind of the one, or Elk was the one they wanted all the way from the get-go. So I don't know if we're overly surprised, but I love the logo, and the name is what it is. I think it's a nice, fresh new name, and it's certainly better than football team.
Logo.
Yeah, I'm okay with it, I guess. I like the logo quite a bit. Like the actual elk itself looks cool, but I'm still a bit off or confused on the terminology as to whether it's elk or elks. I don't believe it's correct. I don't. It doesn't sound quite right. And I'm a bit confused too on the whole. I thought the whole point of going with another E name was so that they can keep the EE, and now they're using it as like a secondary backup thing, and it's not even going to be on their uniforms anywhere. It's not on the helmet logo anymore. So why didn't we open this up to something different then, if we're not even going to be keeping the EE around all that much?
I mean, it's for old merchandise logo.
You get to hit the traditionalists and the new ones.
I guess.
By the throwback jerseys will have the EE logo on the helmet, maybe. I don't know.
Per Merriam-Webster.com, elk for one or two, elks for more than two. So as Will said, they have Merriam-Webster on their side, because immediately I saw a spec ripping it. I saw it's elk. Elk for two, elks for three or more. So grammatically, Edmonton Elks is. It's
technically right, but I would prefer if they were called the Edmonton Elk.
I like it because it's just the one letter change from Esks. You go from Esks to Elks, and boom. Because I used to call them the Esks, but before they changed their name. I think the The logo looks pretty badass. I think that the way that they have it imposed with the EE looks pretty good too. I thought they did a good job for the fact that they were forced into a situation. Not forced. I mean, I think they made the right call. So I'll back that off. But it was time to change their name, and they took the actual time to go about actually not just throwing this out. You know what? Well, we want to keep it E, so we'll be the first one that I heard when they finally changed their name from what it used to be, which again, it was time, it was the right call, but somebody was at the Edmonton Empire. It's like, well, no, that's awful. Don't do that. Don't just choose something that starts with
It should have
E.
been the Edmonton 80s for their City of Champions.
For the glory years?
That's right.
Could've
Well, if you
seen
ask
how
their
that
fans,
works.
they're the greatest franchise ever, and both the Oilers and the football team. Just ask them how many titles they won in the 80s.
It was a good decade for them.
And then
It
you
was
ask
also
how many of
40
those
years
people
ago.
that are throwing that in your face if they were alive when they won those, and it gets real quiet real quick.
Again, somebody threw out Edmonton Energy. No, that's horrible.
I gotta say, Energy would have been worse.
Elks, they're a Northern Alberta thing. They're an Alberta thing. They kept with the color scheme. Still starts with an E. I did a good job. It looks pretty decent when it's all said and done. Seems like most people in Edmonton are on board with it. And more than anything else, Will, this is the most, here we are in early June. It's June 1st today. This is the most positive that we have been talking about an actual CFL season at any point since March 2020. And while you thought the super optimistic, bordering on naive people like me were like, it can still happen. You never felt like truly 100% confident that a CFL football season was going to happen. At least right now, with the way provinces are lifting restrictions, at least you don't have to squint to see a CFL season actually starting August 5th anymore. It actually seems realistic.
Unless you're the Rod Peterson show.
I saw you put that into my timeline over the weekend.
It's embarrassing. Okay, Rod, we get it. You're upset about everything these days, but if you're acting like the border is still a big issue, come on. My God. And I understand that a lot of what he does, he probably doesn't even believe in because he's looking for clicks on his show, but embarrassing take. The border is not a problem. How did the NHL get players in here? People are look at the numbers. There's people listening to this show right now, I guarantee, that have traveled in the pandemic across the border. It's not a problem.
Well, and
so let's stop acting like it is.
The most that would have to happen.
Lazy take.
The most that would have to happen is that, the very worst, they'd have to cover their quarantine hotels, if that. But so you get a special exemption, and they just quarantine, and boom, they
wouldn't even need a special exemption.
No.
They would just go and quarantine.
It seems like it's doable to me. And who knows? If they end up lifting those restrictions later on this month, who knows if they will. June 21st is the next time they revisit the border stuff. If they end up lifting those restrictions or easing off them for double vaccinated people or whatever, it makes it that much easier to get players in. So that to me, Will, I'm with you. That's the least of the things that I think is holding it back at this. I still think, you read Dunk, you read some of the other people who are pretty in tune with this league. The thing that is still the biggest hurdle is whether or not you've got all 9 teams that'll sign off on the financials of it. I don't think logistically there are any issues anymore.
No.
It's all whether or not the league and the 9 owners, the 9 ownership groups are going to sign off on it.
It's all about money. The border is so far from being a problem. It's ridiculous that there's people that still continue to trot that as something.
And really, it's 3 teams, right? It's BC, it's Toronto, and it's Montreal that we believe are the ones that are a little leery on playing financially. So we'll see, but it feels like it's a pretty realistic possibility. Okay, the other football story is you've got the ongoing saga between the other green and gold football team, the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. So, Will, is Green Bay calling his bluff? What is happening with the Packers and Rodgers?
Well, again, this is Aaron Rodgers has demanded a trade out of Green Bay. He has not shown up at OTAs for the first time in his career, and he's continuing to tell people inside the organization that he has no plans of returning. Now, the only way that Aaron Rodgers is going to play football in 2021 is with the Packers. He's really got no leverage here. And we talk all the time, Pat, in demands and requests and all of that with players. Well, who's got the leverage? Well, in this case, the Green Bay Packers have all the leverage, and they plan on calling their quarterbacks bluff. And that bluff would be, okay, if you guys don't trade me, I will just retire. And if he does retire, he would have to pay back $23.5 million of his signing bonus, which, again, seems like a lot to you and I. But to Aaron Rodgers, it's probably not all that much. And as has been joked about in different spots, Ian Rappaport made mention of it on the NFL Network. If Aaron Rodgers goes on to host Jeopardy, well, that salary will cover whatever he owes to the Green Bay Packers over the next couple of years. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And the feeling amongst a lot of insiders, Pat, is if the Packers were going to trade him, they would have done so before the draft, because this is not a new thing. They knew of this well before Adam Schefter dropped the bombshell hours prior to round one in the NFL draft on Thursday in April. So this is not new to the Green Bay front office, and they are trying their best to work something out. And I think that's what they hope will be the ultimate end goal, that they restructure a contract and they make Aaron Rodgers happy, and he ends up playing football for them in 2021. But yeah, the feeling is that if they were going to do this and grant his request, it would have been done already. And, they would have been able to use him for assets in the 2021 draft and not have to, you can trade him now for a 1, but that doesn't really tell you anything, because you don't know where that one's going to be, and you're not going to see that asset for over 12 months. So there's a lot at work here, but the more days that go on and the closer we get to the season, I believe today is exactly 100 days until the start of the NFL season. Well, at this point, I kind of believe the Packers, and they're going to call his bluff all the way to training camp and potentially week 1, week 2 of the regular season.
So can anybody tell me, guys, what that does for Green Bay? Like, what benefit does that serve the Packers other than to prove a point? Like, from a football perspective, if indeed we believe Rodgers has no interest, and maybe we don't believe that. Maybe you don't, Will. Maybe you don't, Logan. I tend to believe Rodgers. He seems like a pretty principled guy. He's always marched to the beat of his own drum. He's got an estimated net worth of $120 million. He will have plenty of revenue streams once his football career is done. He's a Super Bowl champion. He has done plenty throughout his career. So I tend to believe him that he's done with the Packers and that he's not going to come back. But maybe some don't. But if Rodgers is being straight up and there is no posturing involved here, what good does it do the Packers to just stand firm and not trade him? And I'm not even trying to be obtuse on this one. I'm actually asking the question more than rhetorically. Like, what good does it actually do Green Bay to do that? Can anybody fill me in on that?
Well, do they win a trade by trading him?
No, but you get something for an asset that would walk away from you otherwise.
It's either nothing or something.
And that's the only thing, right? That's the only saving grace that Aaron holds on to in this. And his point is, look, you can either trade me and get something for me, which I think he would still get something worthwhile for Green Bay, or you get nothing and I'll just go do whatever. I'll go host Jeopardy or whatever. I think that's what it comes down to. And maybe the Packers are okay with that, but I kind of sit there and go, well, wouldn't you want to get something for him? Isn't it better to get something than to just try to posture and prove a point?
That's kind of where I'm at, Will. But maybe the Packers look at it and say, no, you know what? He plays for us or nobody, and that's worth more than a first round. I don't agree with that. I think that's ridiculous. But that I guess could be where the Packers are coming from. I just don't think it serves any purpose. I think it's a bad look from the team, and I also think that it doesn't do you any favors in trying to make your football team better. You have the chance to get an asset or the chance to get nothing. And if you choose nothing just to dig your feet in the ground, that seems kind of petty. And
well, your football team isn't better without Aaron Rodgers. Regardless of what you get in that trade, your football team is not better, period. End of stop, end of discussion.
But I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying
that's
that
what you just said, though.
But you're better long-term with the asset, or you have a chance to be better long-term with the asset than not. Again, if you're not getting Rodgers back, you're not going to be better next year. Sure. But would you rather get an asset, or would you rather get absolutely nothing just to prove a point?
I don't know. That's probably a question you need to ask the Packers GM, because I'm not him. But in this sense, they're obviously okay with not getting anything for Aaron Rodgers. So that's how I read it. Whether you agree with it or disagree, I think it's very different discussion. I think they're willing.
What would you do if you're the Packers?
I'd call his bluff. Why not? If this guy really wants to play football, you play for us. I think that's plain and simple how it is. And for everybody on that team, Rodgers is probably the only guy who can afford to retire and not show up, and nobody else can really do that. And again, for me, when you hold an asset as good as Rodgers, there's nothing you're going to get in a trade that's ever going to come close to what he is or what he brings to your team. And I understand the something for nothing discussion, but there's no guarantee that what you trade him for ends up being anything for your club anyway. So I know that, you'd come back and say, well, at least it gives yourself a chance. And sure. But again, I just think that when you're trading a guy like Rodgers, you're not going to come out on the right side of it. And when you hold all the cards, it's the same when you tell me all the time about players. And if you've got the leverage, you may as well use it. Well, the Packers have the leverage here. So why would they give up and surrender and say, oh, Aaron, we'll trade you. You want out? We'll trade you. Sure. I think you can make the argument both ways, couldn't you?
I just I don't know if they if Rodgers is being straight up here and he's cool with retiring and paying them back $23 million and just going on with his life. He's engaged now. He's cliff diving. He's hanging out with his new fiance. If he's cool living that life, and I don't begrudge him if he is, he has nothing left to prove anybody at this point. And he has earned the right as one of the 2 or 3 greatest quarterbacks of this generation to do whatever the hell he wants. And if he wants to retire rather than play for the Packers, then have at it. And that's why I don't know if there is any leverage in this situation, because I buy Rodgers, and I think it's counterproductive to your team to just let him do that. To just be like, well, we're mad at you, so we're not going to fulfill your request, so just retire and give us our $23 million. I don't know how that helps your organization. At least you give yourself a chance to do something good if you actually trade him. That's the way I look at it, and that's why it's hard for me to understand why any team would stand so firm on one like this, especially because it's one of the 2-3 greatest players that's ever played for the organization.
Well, that's why they hold their ground. That's exactly why they hold their ground, because you're never going to get that value back, period. Ever.
I guess.
Did the Patriots get anything from Tom Brady?
No.
So are we crushing Belichick and Robert Kraft?
Well, no, because Brady was a free agent.
Right.
So it was his choice to walk.
It's the same thing in a lot of ways. The Packers they hold all the leverage here because they're telling the player that you're under contract. You have no right to demand a trade, and we don't want to trade you because we're not getting value of you back, and we know we're a better team with you on it. So I'm just trying to show you the point of view of where the front office comes from. I'm not saying that I agree with it or that it's the right thing to do, but I'm just saying that it's when you have an asset like that, it's easy from us from the outside to say, well, just trade him. What good does it do to keep him unhappy or to make him pay back the signing bonus? Well, they drafted a quarterback in the last round. We might not think Jordan Love is anything, but they obviously think he's going to be something. So he's never going to be Aaron Rodgers. We all can certainly guarantee that. Yeah. But, they're looking at it and saying, well, why would we just grant you your wish, even though you're upset and we understand that you're upset? Why would we make ourselves worse just so that we can go home at night and put our head on the pillow and say, we got something for you?
I guess it just seems like they're making themselves worse, period. Like, okay, here's the final question I'll ask. what do you put the percentage of, gentlemen, that Rodgers suits up for the Packers next year? Like where would you put that 1 in 10 or out of 100%? Will, what's the percentage there for you?
Well, the only team he's going to play for in 2021 is the Packers. So I think the question is more, is he going to retire or not?
Exactly.
And I don't know, because I don't know. Aaron Rodgers is the only guy who can say it if he's going to or not. But he's a guy who doesn't even talk to his own family, so he seems like a guy who certainly sticks to his guns. I would suggest that, there's probably a very little chance that he wants to come back and play for Green Bay. But I think it's a question of, does he want to play football anymore or not? Because as we just talked about, the Packers are willing to go down that road and see if he is.
Logs?
0% chance.
I'm kind of.
I don't think he's coming. I don't think he wants to play in Green Bay, and I think the only other option is that they trade him. I don't think there's any change of minds or anything else like that. Like, I don't think anybody's changing. They both seem to be pretty steadfast in their beliefs right now, and I wouldn't put it past them to trade him at some point and just get rid of the headache, and I wouldn't put it past Aaron to retire and move on in his life. So I don't think he's playing football for Green Bay.
My final thought is, I just think it's better for everybody for the Packers to trade him. It relieves them of a bad look and a headache. They get something. He moves on. Like, what? Do that as opposed to this pissing match they're in right now. That's where I come in on it. It's going to be tough to convince me otherwise. Now, actually, you know what? I lied. I have one other question. Would you say the Packers hold a pretty big hammer in this situation? That's the final question I wanted to ask.
That's a question
He still
for you, man.
has a pretty big hammer.
Answer is yes. Nope, there it is. The answer is yes. That is from former regular texter Luke, who is now more of a sporadic texter, but
has a pretty big hammer.
When you can throw that in there, I give you a tip of the hat. It's good to have you back. It's good to have you back on the program, Luke. We'll see what happens. It certainly feels like for now, whether you think the Packers are in their right mind or not to be doing it, seems like this is going to be a standoff between Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers for the next little bit. Who's probably not all that concerned about this is Peter Labardius as a Vikings fan. I don't think that'll be our lose mailbag question. The final mailbag question is coming up on Friday, so you still have a few days to win.
I think he'd rather have that former Packer come play for his team as opposed to the other former Packer who came and played for his team.
Would you even think about throwing that pass? You could ask him that, I guess. Maybe that's the selection, maybe not. Sportsnet.ca/960. Get your questions in this week for the final edition of Lose Mailbag on Friday. If we read your question to Peter Labardius on the air, you're winning a $100 gift card to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Let's see if I can read this tag a little better than I did yesterday. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, where prime steak is broiled to perfection and served sizzling on a 500-degree plate, ensuring each bite is as hot and delicious as the last. That's coming up on Friday's edition of The Big Show. Back to hockey next. Vezina Trophy nominees are out. It's early, but one of this year's finalists very much on his way to what looks like a Hall of Fame career. We'll tell you about that around the corner on Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
The Big Show is live and streaming at sportsnet.ca/960. Sportsnet 960 The Fan, Calgary.
All right, first batch of major NHL award finalists came out earlier today. Vezina Trophy, Tampa's Andrei Vasilevsky, Colorado's Philip Grubauer, Vegas's Marc-Andre Fleury are your three finalists. Just quickly wanted to point something out and get us to dive in quickly on it. I just look at what Andrei Vasilevsky has done since becoming a full-time starter in the NHL, and I am very well aware that it is still early and goaltending is unpredictable, so I get that. But this is now a fourth consecutive year of Vasilevsky being a Vezina finalist. He already has a Vezina Trophy win, could easily win a second this year, depending on how voters go. And for me, this is one of the very rare exceptions to the rule of, at least in my rule, of don't take goalies in the first round. But there are the rare goalies that come around like once every 5 years or so. The Carey Prices, the Roberto Luongos, and the guy like this, Andrei Vasilevsky, that they kind of buck that trend. He has done nothing but look like a franchise goaltender since taking over. Will a Vezina Trophy, a Stanley Cup, Right now, his career save percentage is 7th best in league history at .920, and he's just 26 years old. And for me, he's shown me that he can kind of do it all. He can sustain a high level over a high workload of 55, 60-plus starts. He can get it done in the NHL postseason. He can get it done in big games. He's gotten it done internationally. And I know that things happen and careers change and goalies are unpredictable. But boy, oh boy, does Andrei Vasilevskiy not have a pretty good early case for a Hall of Fame trajectory right now. This guy is on a ridiculously good course right now.
On your run of first-round goalies, you didn't even mention the other Vezina finalist, the Marc-Andre Fleury. So
that's right, number 1 overall pick. Absolutely.
That's right.
He belongs.
Might not be a number 1 overall pick, but certainly was worthy of a first-round pick,
sure.
And perhaps the greatest draft of all time in 2003. But to your point, you asked all the tough questions last segment, so I'll take that role in this segment, Pat. How much of that is playing on one of the greatest teams we've ever seen?
Definitely is a part of it. There's no question that being a goalie on a team as good as Tampa, an elite team for, the better part of the last, more than a half decade now, they have been an elite team. We're going on like 6, 7, 8 years now. So that definitely helps. And Ben Bishop was the guy before and then made way, and Vasilevskiy came in. But I take a look at that save percentage, and I take a look at what I've seen from him in games where he is needed to be called on, and I guess it diminishes a little bit how much I take away credit from him. It definitely helps. It helps with any goaltender, but it doesn't change for me that this guy's still an elite goaltender.
Yeah, no, he's still elite for me. I just think that some of the numbers can be inflated when you're playing on a team that's that good. I mean, we're talking about a generational type team, one that, likely should have more than one Stanley Cup to their name. They might add a couple more, who knows? Mm-hmm. But yeah, when you're in competition for the President's Trophy and you're winning, 50, 55, 60 games a year, I could probably play goal for them and it'd still be pretty good. So I'm not trying to take away from Vasilevskiy because I think he has had a terrific career, and I think he's going to go down as a guy who likely is in the Hockey Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. I just think that it's certainly crucial, and the same can be said. You talk about early quarterbacks, and it's hard to compare sport to sport, but you've got to have a pretty good team to be good as a quarterback early in your career. I think it's easier as a goaltender. We saw that even with Matt Murray in Pittsburgh, right? A guy who benefited from playing behind a pretty good team, and then certainly had lost it even playing in Pittsburgh, and now does not look like the same guy in Ottawa. So I just wanted to point that out, but I certainly think that he is a guy that will be on this Vezina finalist list for quite some time, and that's probably even if he were to be playing outside of Tampa Bay. So, he's terrific, and he's going to win a handful of these when his career is all said and done.
Really interested to see him be the guy in, less than a year's time, I guess it would be. Are we really talking about the Winter Olympics in 10 months or 9 months? I guess we are. Beijing is coming up in February 2022. He'll be the guy for Russia or whatever they'll be called. And I'm really interested because he's won a world championship gold, and he's had success, but not ultimate success at the World Juniors. He's obviously had the greatest team success in the NHL, being a Stanley Cup winner. That'll be really interesting seeing him at the Olympics in 2022. Who wins the Vezina this year? If we have a vote around the table, who's your Vezina Trophy winner of those 3 finalists? Grubauer, Vasilevskiy, and Marc-Andre Fleury. Well,
for me, it's Marc-Andre Fleury. 928 save percentage, goals against below 2, 6 shutouts. The guy was lights out all season long, and there wasn't even guarantees that he was going to be their guy heading into the season. He might get some votes taken away because he was a guy who kind of alternated starts down the stretch there a little bit and certainly didn't play the same amount like a guy like Vasilevskiy. And the numbers are pretty close. But for me, I'm going Marc-Andre Fleury.
Logo?
I think Vasilevskiy's going to get it. My heart wants it for Fleury, but I think he might get hurt by having Leonard there, and the fact that he started and played in less
Only
games.
6 games left, less than Vasilevsky.
Yeah, I
Still
know.
not
But
out
in a
there.
56-game season, I think the Leonard thing will probably hurt him when it comes to voting all of that through. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I think it'll be Vasilevsky.
If I had a vote, I would be, sentimentally, my vote would go to Fleury because, and he belongs. He was one of the 3 best goalies in the NHL, so it's not like he's sentimentally in this finalist group at a top 3 vote getter because of who he is. But I think if I had a vote, my one would probably it would be hard not to go to Fleury because he's such a nice guy and it's such a cool career and it would be such a fun way for him to end the career. So I think I'd go Fleury 1, but only slightly over Vasilevsky, and then Grubauer number 3. And the only other thing I'll say is that it is, and I threw out the stat, and I think that it's fun. He's got the 7th best save percentage in NHL history. It's also, the save percentage is, it's a different game. Goalie equipment's a different animal than it was in the 1980s. I'd be curious to see a Mike Vernon or a Grant Fuhr or some of those goalies that were very good in the early 90s and into the 1980s, what those save percentages would have been with different goaltending equipment and different hockey would have been interesting, because the only kind of non-current goalies that are in that top 7 or 8 are Ken Dryden, which is pretty crazy, and the best all-time is Dominic Hasek. Otherwise, it's a lot of guys these days, so I just wanted to point that out there.
Doesn't that show you how good Dryden was?
And how good those, and again, to your point about teams, how good those teams were, too, when Dryden was playing. But at 922, I guess Dryden's tied with Rask and Hasek for the best all-time save percentage at 922. Shows you.
And he was wearing probably pads that were as wide as his shin.
Yeah.
So,
and he was,
congratulations.
He was a skinny little fellow when he was playing, too. It's a good point by you. That's the one that really doesn't belong in that mix.
Have you seen his body, Pat?
One of the most unique bodies. Am I going to be able to find
I've ever seen.
Quickly. No, I can't find it.
Just search L, and you'll find it.
Oh, here we go.
Unique bodies I've ever seen.
And with that, we're live in the Iconic studio today, powered by Iconic Electric and Controls. Diversity, it's Iconic. Contact them today at iconicec.ca. Well, we have talked about how important this offseason is going to be for the Calgary Flames, but what does this offseason actually look like timeline-wise for the Flames? It's next on our Daily Flames Roundtable around the corner. Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
Streaming now through the Sportsnet mobile app. This is The Big Show. Sportsnet 960 The Fan, Calgary.
Daily Flames Roundtable in just seconds, but first some important news for Albertans when it comes to COVID-19 vaccines. Let's check in at the 660 News Center with Sandra Prasina.
Albertans who have received their first COVID-19 vaccination dose will be able to book a second by June's end. That from Premier Jason Kenney, who says if you were first vaccinated in March, you can book now. If you were vaccinated in April, you can book shot 2 on the 14th. And if you got your first shot in May, you can start booking June 28th. The expectation is those who want a second dose will have it by the end of summer. From the 660 News Center, I'm Sandra Prusina.
Daily Calgary Flames Roundtable, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Country Hills. Awarding enhanced trade-in values on pre-owned vehicles. Mercedes-Benz Country Hills, minutes from the airport.
And today's roundtable is just the 3 idiots. It's the 2 guys and the idiot. How's that? That's not fair to you guys. It's Logan Gordon.
Dumb.
It's Will Nault. And it's me, Pat Steinberg. And so, we've got so much to talk about when it comes to this offseason. And we've all talked about how important this offseason is for the Calgary Flames. But what does it actually look like, and what does that timeline actually look like? So let's just go through it. Here's kind of the way that it's going to work and some of the important benchmarks along the way for this offseason. And it really starts tomorrow, gentlemen, with the NHL Draft Lottery. 2 draws will be made. The Flames have a 2.2% chance of winning the first overall pick. They have slightly better, likely slightly better odds for the second overall pick after they do the first draw. But Logan, slim chances overall in the draft lottery. But I guess, you're kind of like between 2 and 3 out of 100 chances of winning. It'd be kind of neat if they won the NHL draft lottery for the first time ever. But they have some of the worst chances amongst the 16 teams involved.
Yeah, I think that, it's always an exciting thing, though. I sure do a virtual thing with representatives instead of everybody in the room standing around and waiting as Bill Daly comes out and shows every card. But there's still a chance here, so I guess we can't completely rule it out. And with, Arizona having to forfeit their pick, it makes it a bit more interesting. I think that, there's always a chance. I'm not going to sit here and say that anybody should be holding out for that tomorrow, and if it is, it's a gift that falls into your lap. But to sit here and put any money or bank on that happening at whatever it is, 2.2%, I don't think anybody should be holding their breath tomorrow.
No, 2.2% chance. It's literally like winning the lottery. It's probably very unlikely, and there's a better chance than not the Flames are staying where they are. What is it, 12th or 13th, Pat? I think that's probably where you're looking at it for the Flames when it's all said.
Yeah, and depending on how the lottery goes, they're probably
12, which is actually 11.
Because of Arizona, yeah. And though, if you're wondering, so the Arizona Coyotes had to forfeit their first-round pick for the testing violation. So they got sanctioned, and one of the sanctions was them losing.
I knew they never should have put you on that bike.
I know. That's Steinberg. He's so good at hockey. We want to make sure that he's, he can keep up athletically. So they will have the 11th best odds in the first draw for the lottery. However, if their name or if they get drawn in either of the first two draws, or the only two draws, they'll just redraw. So it kind of means that teams below them have better odds, but not really. It just means that if Arizona does have their name drawn, then they'll do it again. So the Flames are at 2.2%. The only teams with worse odds are Philadelphia, Dallas, and the New York Rangers. This is the last draft, though, that whoever wins can move up to 1 or 2. The first draw is for first overall. The second draw is for second overall. But that does lead us to what is more important. So let's just say the Flames are drafting, say, 12th when it's all said and done. July 23rd and 24th is the 2021 NHL Draft. The Flames have 7 picks. They own 2 in the third round, none in the fourth. Their additional third-round pick comes from the Oilers on the condition from the Neal trade, Neal for Lucic, and they don't have a fourth-round pick. It's owned by the LA Kings, thanks to the Derek Forbort trade from just over a year ago. Assuming they don't win the lottery, well, there are some who say, well, because this draft is so weird, because there has been such a different world that we've been living in from a scouting standpoint, the Flames should have their first-round pick in play. For you, should they have that first-round pick be, I know your answer, but should it be in play?
No, absolutely not. I think that you have a chance to add a top 15 talent to your team. The scouting is probably going to be not maybe as accurate as years past, but the draft is still as good. Like, there's still good players in this draft. We're going to be talking 5 years from now about players in the 2021 draft that have had significant impacts on their respective teams. So when you're picking 12th, you've got a better chance than not of having a big piece of your puzzle added here in the next little while. And for my money, Pat, and I know some might disagree, outside of Zary and Peltier, I'm not sure the Flames have a lot of NHL prospects. So for me, this is a team that needs to be adding more names to that list, not to subtracting more names from that list. So there's no guarantees this 12th pick is going to be anything or be an NHL star. But again, outside of the 2 previous first-round picks, I don't see a ton of NHL regulars waiting in the wings in this team's system.
That's where I am, Logo. Like, whether you think they should blow it up or not, and nobody believes that's going to happen anyway, I don't know if this is the time to be trading away first-round picks. I think that they need to hit on a couple of guys. There needs to be more high-end talent added to this organization. And I just don't know a first-round pick, a mid-round first-round pick in this draft, especially, it's not getting you that elite talent. That's not what you're bringing in if that's on the move. So I'm with Will. I think you need to add more to the coffers because, is Ruzicka a blue-chip prospect? Is Phillips a blue-chip prospect? Probably not. Maybe they play, maybe they don't. But this is not the cupboards of young players that are not on the team at this point. Once again, pretty bare for this organization.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way, and I'm going to do so not necessarily because I sit here and I believe that it's the best thing for this franchise or for this organization, but I think in a way, based on how I think things are going to go for them in the direction that I think we all know they're going to take, which is to, maybe readjust and still try to remain a contender rather than, burning it down to the ground and starting up again. I almost disagree with you, Pat, in a sense that I don't know that they have a better asset to move right now than this first-round pick. And whether that's in a deal as a throw-in or not a throw-in, I guess it's a top 15 pick, but
as part of a package.
Yeah, as part of a package, whether that's with a Monahan or somebody else. I'm really not sure that after the year they had, that they have a whole lot of other assets that are going to bring them anything back worthwhile. That first round pick, I think, can do it. And I think that every year we have these conversations, we talk about how draft picks, they never get more valuable than once you hit draft day or get closer to that. And we know Brad Treliving's done some of his best work at drafts previously. So I think if he was to have one of those picks in his, a top 10, 15 pick like that, I think that's an asset that could get them something there. Is that the best course of action for a team? Maybe not, but I think that's going to be one of their better trade chips this year.
Wow. I will say, like, in if I were to put myself in the shoes of a team that is dead set on staying competitive, well, then, yeah, I could twist myself, Will, into seeing why that first-round pick would be the one to move away because of the scouting differences and because this is going to be such a different-looking draft board. I guess I could see how they could twist themselves into knots and say that this is the year they should trade a first-round pick. I don't think they should, but I guess I could see why or how they could get themselves to that point, if that makes any sense.
Oh, I won't be surprised if they deal the trade or the pick. Let me just say that.
So the draft goes July 23rd and July 24th. It'll be a virtual draft once again. We'll have full coverage for you right here on Sportsnet 960 The Fan, much like we will have full draft lottery coverage for you tomorrow, starting just after 5 o'clock. It's Pat Steinberg, Will Nault, Logan Gordon, Daily Flames Round Table. Slightly before the NHL draft, the expansion draft. So here is the timeline for expansion. July 17th are when protection lists are due. They'll then be made public the following morning, July 18th. The expansion draft itself goes July 21st. The question is, it's the biggest one in Flames land right now. Will, what should the Flames do with Mark Giordano? How should they handle this potential expansion dilemma they have on their hands?
I think it's pretty simple, quite frankly. I really don't understand or get the complications that come from this, and that includes the optics. I get that he's been your captain. So what? And it seems so rude because I'm trying to, not make it sound like these players are just pawns, but it's kind of what they are, especially in this sense. And if you're the Flames, I think it's pretty simple in that you call or you sit Mark Giordano down and you say, look it. Yes, you're our captain. We value you greatly. We thank you for all that you've done in Calgary and the community, and our fans love you. But you're 37. You're going to be 38 in October. You've got 1 year left. We have 3 defensemen that are significantly younger than you and make less money than you, and are locked up for at least 3 more seasons as opposed to year 1. Mark, I hope you understand we are going to leave you exposed in this upcoming expansion draft. That's quite frankly cut and dry for me. I don't really see a lot of gray myself.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. I think the only conversation is the optic of it, and I think that unfortunately sometimes this organization gets ahead of themselves, and they sometimes, frankly, screw things up by overthinking it. from a simple asset management standpoint, you protect Hannafin, Anderson, and Tanev. I don't think anybody can question anything other than that. And to that point, even I'm not sold that Seattle's overly interested in Mark Giordano. I'm really not. At 37, with 1 year left on his contract, you're trying to build, longer term players, or at least give yourself assets that are valuable long term for your organization. I'm not sure that Mark Giordano is that. When you look at a Derek Ryan, who, yes, is a UFA, but is from the area, or perhaps they, see something in an Oliver Shillington at 24 years old. You can make that case for both of those guys. Even exposing Mark, I'm not sold that Seattle's going to take him. And Will laid out every single point about the other three guys. I'm sorry, I'm not giving up any of those three guys right now in exchange for keeping Mark Giordano. And almost every deal that we saw the Vegas Golden Knights do in their, their year of expansion worked out in their favor. So I wouldn't be looking to do a team that's coming into your division any favors to hold on to a 37-year-old defenseman.
Yeah. Well, to add to that, Logan, if they leave any of the other three exposed, Seattle's taking them, no questions.
For sure.
They don't 100%. Have anybody even close that Seattle would have to think about.
Those guys become...
So that's why, for me, there's no gray. I mean, unless you're bending over backwards and trading away a bunch of assets just to protect the Tanev, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
The other area I'm not in the gray in either is that conversation. Whether it would be to protect 32-year-old Tanev or soon-to-be 38-year-old Giordano, I don't think that the Flames are in a position, much like our conversation about the draft, to be giving up prospects or picks assets to protect, to make sure that they can keep all four of those guys. And yes, there is risk. If you leave Giordano actually vulnerable, there would be risk of him getting selected. I'm with you, Logo. I don't think it's a massive risk. I would be actually a little surprised if Seattle went down that road. I think there might be other options that they would look at instead of that. But Will, the way you framed it is exactly the way that I would do it. I would say, Mark, we hope you don't get selected. We want you to be our captain. We think that you have done immeasurable things for this organization, and we still think that you're an important part of our team right now. However, there is an expansion draft. The NHL mandates that we have to leave X amount of players available, and we can only protect X amount of players. As you know, these players are younger and will be more a part of our future going forward based solely on the fact that you'll be turning 38 in October. For that reason, we really hope Seattle does not select you, but we have to leave you vulnerable. That's the only way you can do it.
And we also hope that you understand we're not going to give up assets to make sure that you are protected on top of this protection list. I think that has to be part of the conversation because, you're probably not paying a significant price, because I agree with both of you. I know there's probably some listening and even some that have been on this radio station in the last 2 weeks that might disagree, but I don't think Seattle would have, I don't want to say any interest, but I think they would have very little interest in a player who's going to be 38 and only signed for one more season. And knowing that he's got roots in Calgary and from Toronto, he's not likely going to sign or re-sign as a UFA at 39 in Seattle either. So that to me is kind of pretty straightforward in that respect.
And almost to the point, you guys, wouldn't Seattle take, and I know it's only a year, and this isn't, to take a hit to Mark or anything, he's still a good defenseman, but with a flat cap the next couple of years, even if they took him, isn't that almost a favor to the Flames?
I think that's $7 million.
Almost $7 million in this offseason to play with when nobody's got cap room for anything.
I agree.
Well, I think that's you're sitting there looking at Seattle taking that like, okay, I guess we're losing a captain and a top four defenseman from our roster, but I mean, you're not getting any other major cap relief this year. If that was to come into your lap all of a sudden.
If I were to do a power rankings of what should happen, in my opinion, it would be 1, leave him vulnerable, no side deal. 2, I guess, leave him unprotected and see if you can pay a nominal price to make sure that Vegas takes somebody else. And then in a distant third would be protecting him over one of the other defensemen. That almost wouldn't even make my list on the power rankings. We're all kind of all in agreement there. So one other expansion question. So Giordano is one of the guys that could very realistically be made available. But realistically, who do you think the Seattle Kraken were to take? Like, who's a realistic option for the Flames to lose come next month, Logo?
I think it has to be Derek Ryan. I think that we've seen a similar situation last time, even with him, despite being an unrestricted free agent this offseason. The fact that he's from the Washington area would have a good connection to that community.
So there's a very loud truck that decided to drive down my street.
Windows open?
That's good. Yeah, the window's open,
We'll
and
just
I'm
hanging
sitting.
on the tarmac.
I'm sitting like, I don't know. I'll text you guys a photo. I'm probably 8 feet from the window, and
what is happening? So. Anyway, I think it's Derek Ryan. I think he's still a valuable bottom half of the lineup guy for you, who's dependable. He's good on face-offs. He can immediately work on your top penalty kill unit. He's just a guy that gets it. I think he's a good pro, even at 34 years old. I think he's in a flat cap world, talking about his re-signing being less. And I think it's important, as we've seen before, Will, that a lot of these guys make a good community connection and start to build up that fan base there. So I would, if I was Seattle, I think top of my list would be Derek Ryan.
I've been on the Ryan train for a while. I certainly brought that up in the past, and I don't think that that's crazy to suggest. I do wonder about the age and where they go down that road. I also, all due respect to Derek Ryan, I don't know if he's a marketable name, even if he is a local product. It's not like they're going to be selling thousands of Ryan jerseys in the first year in Seattle. So I could see it. But I don't know if it's certainly a sure thing. It's obviously very similar to the last time expansion happened and the Flames lost a local product in Derek Englund, who was very similar age and probably similar type of role type player. So I don't think it's crazy to suggest that they could lose Derek Ryan. But the guy for me that I've probably talked myself into, because again, I don't know how much of an asset he is, and I don't know what Ron Francis views him as. But I do wonder about a guy like Oliver Shillington at 24 years of age. We've talked about him before, guys. I think that whether it's in Europe, where I think that he probably should do or make his next move. Like if I'm Oliver Shillington and I look internally and honestly about where I am and my best chance at a long hockey future, it's going back to my homeland in Europe, and whether that's Sweden or the KHL and getting a lot of ice time, because I think there's some stuff there and there's certainly some skills that he can build on. I just don't know, if Seattle views him as an asset, having only played 7 games in the last year, and then the year before that, having played very, very little. So would be an X factor type guy for me, Pat. And the forward list, I think it all depends on who you take. But I don't think it's crazy to suggest that Milan Lucic would be available to them either. On the opposite end of Ryan, a similar type age, early to mid 30s, a guy who's already played 1,000 games, but unlike Ryan, who's a Stanley Cup winner in Lucic, and a guy that, also is somewhat local, a little bit more of a marketable name. So those are the guys I look at, but I'm intrigued by what they view Oliver Shillington as we head closer to the expansion draft.
Yeah, he's the one for me, because I still, whether I think it's a super attainable ceiling or not, I still think there is a decent ceiling for him. And like I think that ceiling is a full-time NHL defenseman. I don't think we're talking about an impact maker here, but I think that he can be a full-time defenseman in this league if he reaches that ceiling. And again, that's why I say I don't know how attainable it is. I'm less confident that it's attainable here, but just knowing the way Vegas went about their business and some of the chances they gave players, and some didn't work. I mean, I can't even remember just off the top of my head. Kersh will be mad at me, but I can't remember the guy they brought over from Russia and it didn't work, and then he went back to Russia, but they gave the guy a chance, and they gave other players.
Shipachev.
Yes, Shipachev. Thank you. And okay, that didn't work out, but you know who it did work out for? It worked out pretty well for William Karlsson. That guy was not a regular, and now all of a sudden he's a regular. And yeah, I know he's only scored 40 once, but he's still a regular and a pretty good hockey player. And there are multiple other examples of that that the Vegas Golden Knights were able to give an elevated role to because they were an expansion team, and all of a sudden that guy realized their potential. So Ryan's a good one. Lucic is a good one. Like, I could see that, but I really do wonder about going to that fresh set of eyes, being looked at as, like, if you're Shillington, you're going to a place where they want you, and you're leaving a place that they didn't leave you protected for good reason, but they didn't leave you protected. They haven't given you a lot of opportunity, and it just hasn't worked. I think that he would be motivated. I think it would be a brand new, fresh way of thinking for him, and I think that there would be a potential that it could work out. So
here's the only problem, Pat, and the reason why I say Europe is more a target. Like, he's played 59 games total in any level of hockey since October of 2019.
Yeah. It's not been a lot of hockey.
Like, how if you're Ron Francis, how can you sell yourself this guy's going to be an asset, or that he can achieve this said ceiling in under your watch? Like, he needs to play. And if I'm Seattle, again, I don't know if I'm putting Oliver Shillington in a top 4 role based on the fact that he's only played 59 games in 20, 21, 22 months.
Yeah, it's 100% a factor. Is a really interesting one. And, we all have our opinions as to what the Flames should do when it comes to the captain. What they end up doing, though, I don't know. There's more on the offseason to-do list. We'll do it tomorrow on the Daily Flames Roundtable.
Daily Calgary Flames Roundtable, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Country Hills. Awarding enhanced trade-in values on pre-owned vehicles. Mercedes-Benz Country Hills, minutes from the airport.
All right, Logo's up next. Biggest stories of the day. Headlines around the corner. Stay with us on The Big Show, Sportsnet 960 The Fan.
All day long, we do the searching, the editing, the filtering. We find the good stuff, add some opinion, and call it Sportsnet 960 Headlines.
Big Show headlines, brought to you by Hyatt Infinity, Calgary's original Infinity destination, serving you for over 28 years. Hyatt Infinity, Heritage Meadows Road on Luxury Lane.
All right, it's Will Nault, it's Pat Steinberg, and now Logan Gordon has the biggest stories of this Tuesday drive home. What's going on, Logo?
Happy Tuesday, boys. Just one game in the Stanley Cup playoffs tonight. It's in Carolina, where Tampa Bay looks to take a 2-0 series lead against the Hurricanes, coming off that 2-1 victory in game number 1. Expecting the same goaltending matchup that we've seen throughout these playoffs for both sides. That's Andrei Vasilevsky and Alexander Nedeljkovic. Pat, Nikita Kucherov has come in and been a force for the Lightning since missing the regular season due to injury. 12 points already for Tampa Bay as they continue to look like Stanley Cup contenders and are well on their way to a potential repeat this year.
Yeah, they certainly look like one of the best teams in the NHL, and right now we have the opportunity anyway, gentlemen. The Islanders, the Bruins, the Hurricanes, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Montreal Canadiens, and Winnipeg Jets all have something to say about it, but there is an opportunity of what would be a ridiculous Stanley Cup final right now between Tampa Bay and Colorado. Nonetheless, Tampa, I thought they did a really nice job, Will, of weathering the Game 1 storm. Carolina came out like a house on fire. Vasilevsky was great for that first period, kept the Lightning in it. They never trailed. Hurricanes tied it. They fight all the way back, and then Nedeljkovic gives up that bad goal in the third period. But I thought Tampa really got comfortable in that game, in game number 1. I think this is a very hotly contested series, but the Lightning certainly showed why they're a team that knows how to win big games, because that's sometimes how you got to win a playoff game. You're not going to be able to be the best team from start to finish, but they stuck with it and were able to come away with a Game 1 victory. I'm looking at a very similar script again tonight. Not a whole lot between Carolina and the Lightning.
Logo, look, get a load of this guy, hey? Now he knows how to say Nedeljkovic, so he mixes it in every time.
I get anxiety every time.
Logo,
every
he just makes it look so easy, doesn't he? He just
wouldn't even know he had
right
trouble with it.
tongue. What's that?
So you wouldn't even know he used to have trouble with
it. And now he's mixing it in every sentence. He's just showing off.
You're just getting it in my head, and now the next time I will definitely screw it up.
So easy, hey? Nedeljkovic. But yeah, to your point, Pat, this is not a series that I anticipate being over rather quickly. I think this is going to be a 6 or a 7 game series. I ultimately think Carolina wins it, to be perfectly honest, but they're going to need 6 or 7 games to do it. I thought they had terrific moments in game 1. Nedeljkovic certainly wants that goal back, and they've got to capitalize on their power play chances. When you're playing a team like Tampa and you get 5 power play chances in a game, you have to get more than 1. And so we'll see if Carolina can make any adjustments here. By the way, nice little hat tip. Jake Bean, first NHL playoff goal in game 1. So congratulations to the former Calgary Hitman. But I think we're going to see another fun game tonight, and 2 teams that certainly don't lack speed or entertainment. Looking forward to this one tonight.
Just a quick lineup note on the Tampa Bay side of things. John Cooper, saying that Eric Chernak will play tonight. David Savard will not, but could be back in the Lightning lineup as soon as game number 3. We're under an hour before puck drop on that one. Sportsnet West, the place you can watch it, 5:30 puck drop. Lightning and Hurricanes game number 2. Now, as far as things go in net for Tampa Bay, not much of a surprise that they will go again with Andre Vasilevsky, and we found out today that he joins Marc-Andre Fleury of the Vegas Golden Knights and Philip Grubauer of the Colorado Avalanche as your 3 finalists for the Vezina Trophy. This one voted on by the general managers around the league. Your records, save percentage, and goals against average this year: Vasilevsky with a 31-10-1 record, a 925 and a 221. Fleury goes 26-10-0, 928 save percentage. 198 goals against, and Grubauer 39-1, a 922 and a 195. We've talked about this a bit earlier today, but not much of a surprise that Vasilevsky's up there. He's regular now for this award, while the Tampa Bay Lightning have been dominant. But for Fleury, some thought he might be in a tandem or even in a backup role to Robin Lehner. And Philip Grubauer now getting some consideration for a great season out in Colorado.
Yeah, 3 obviously terrific seasons, all very similar numbers. Grubauer led the way with 7 shutouts, but you can give or take, and any team would be happy with those stats. I love Pete DeBoer's quote today. He was asked about it, and he says, you've got the final 8. No surprise that all 3 goalies are here. It's a pretty important position, and I think we talk about that a lot, Pat, and we talked about Vasilevsky earlier, and not to take anything away from him, because the team in front of him is one of the best teams of our era, and we'll be talking about the Lightning in the 2010 decade for quite some time, but he still has to be dynamite in the moments that matter, and he's been that for that team. So no matter how good your team is, goaltending at the end of the day is what matters, and I know that you even talked about that with Grubauer in Colorado. As good as that team looks, if Grubauer doesn't stay healthy or something happens to that position, that can certainly deflate a really good hockey team really quickly. So not a lot to pick between these guys. We said it earlier. I think that around the horn, outside of logo, I think our picks go to Marc-Andre Fleury, but I don't think you can be mad at any of these guys for winning it.
No, definitely not. And the one guy that I really wanted to just because we gave a lot of love to Fleury and a lot of love to Vasilevsky in that segment, but I remember going
Grubauer's had a hell of a year.
He really has. And I remember going into the 2019 postseason when the Flames were taking on the Avalanche, and I said to myself, okay, well, you know what? I really don't trust Colorado's goaltending, and geez, Grubauer is he's the type of guy that might let you down. Well, no offense to Mike Smith, who was very good in that series, but Grubauer was at the very least his equal in that 5-game series. And I know there have been injuries over the last couple of years, but when Grubauer is healthy, he has turned himself into, Logo, one of the better goalies in the NHL. And no doubt about it, Colorado having that group in front of him always helps. But the guy that was in Washington and the guy that has now arrived in Colorado, I did not see that coming. Tip of the hat to Philip Grubauer, who's turned into one of the best goalies in the NHL. And I really, really do give him credit for it.
Just a side note to that, how about all the goalies coming out of Washington? over the last little while.
It's quite a factory.
Holtby, Varlamov, Grubauer, Vanacek, Samsonov. Not doing too bad when it comes to finding goaltenders.
Big fan of Ilya Samsonov's kid, by the way.
So that's the.
That was just for Pat. He didn't even react.
I was waiting.
It was good.
I was waiting. I didn't think he was going to say anything, but all right. So that's your Vezina Trophy finalists. We'll start to get some more awards as the week continues.
Ted Lindsay Award is tomorrow.
Ted Lindsay's tomorrow. Okay, so we'll have that one for you tomorrow. Sticking with hockey for this one, guys. Team Canada in action very early this morning, trying to make it to the quarterfinals despite a dreadful 0-3 start, and the Canadians would find a way to get it done. They're off to the quarterfinals despite losing in a shootout to Finland. They're going to make it. It's a very strange set of circumstances, but after a regulation win from Germany over Latvia, Canada slides into that number 4 spot and now has a date with the Russians on Thursday. Pat, it hasn't been pretty, much like many of these versions of O Canada.
They don't have anybody singing the national anthem, I don't believe. Can't really screw it up. Close. It really isn't that hard an anthem to mess up.
The greatest blunder of all time is the one from Vegas. I mean, it's not even close. The "O Canada" sang to the tune of "O Christmas Tree." It's not even close. I mean, it's the greatest anthem blunder of all time.
This is almost was
a little bit of prep.
"O Canada." Oh, no, that's not right. That's actually wrong.
Pat, this was
also
almost
a brutal
big
Christmas Carol
blunder of a tournament for Canada. That 0-3 start, but they seem to be lifted since Andrew Mangiapane formed that new top line with Adam Henrique and Connor Brown. And despite the loss today, they found themselves with a chance, at least, going into the quarterfinals. They'll have a tough matchup against the Russians, who finished atop of Group B.
Yeah, and I'm like 8 points in 4 games for Mangiapane. That's been a really cool story to see how he got there. Kind of solidified the team's top line. They started scoring, and there's a tough matchup. There's no doubt about it. They're going to need goaltending. They're going to be outgunned. They're going to be outmatched. But hey, if they can get the goaltending performance they need from Kemper and pull off an upset, it wouldn't be the craziest thing that's ever happened in this tournament. It's a weird, unpredictable tournament. It really is, because it is such a short notice tournament for so many players. Would not be an absolute stunner if Canada was able to move on, but there's no doubt about it. It'll be Russia who's favored in that game in the quarter as well. They do have the significantly better team on paper.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I think I'd be, you say you wouldn't be surprised. I'd be surprised if Canada wins. I think it's going to be an interesting game. They certainly are a better team as this tournament has gone on. They've certainly faced some weaker competition in some of those games, but confidence is a funny thing in the sport, and they have a little bit of that going into a quarterfinal round. That after their loss to Germany last weekend, it seemed like a complete and utter pipe dream. So congrats to them. They've played some better hockey, and now they're going up against potentially the best team in this tournament. And it's not going to be easy, but it's why they play the games, kids.
So that's the hockey story today, guys. We'll move to baseball now, where the Toronto Blue Jays are back in action tonight in about 15 minutes' time. They'll kick off a series with the Miami Marlins, but they'll do so from a different stadium. They're back at Salient Field in Buffalo, at least for the time being. Mark Shapiro talking with Sportsnet 590 in Toronto today, and talking just about the logistics about maybe coming back to Toronto at some point this season. All the details not worked out, but it's still something that they're trying to figure out.